Welcome to Chapter 1 of the ALIVAC Python course. In this lesson, we will learn about variables and basic data types in Python. By the end of this session, you will understand how to store data using variables and how to work with strings, integers, floats, and booleans. Let's get started.
So, what is Python? Python is a programming language. A programming language is a special way of writing instructions so that a computer can do tasks for us. For example, adding numbers, checking conditions, working with text, or working with data like tables and images. Python is popular because the code looks similar to simple English, and it is used in many areas, such as web development, data analysis, and artificial intelligence. When you write Python code, think of it as giving very clear and exact orders to a very fast assistant. The computer only does exactly what you write, nothing more, nothing less. For this course, we will use a free online tool called Google Colab. Google Colab is a website where you can write Python code directly in your web browser, like Chrome or Firefox. You do not need to install anything on your computer. You can save your work in Google Drive and share your notebook with classmates or the teacher. Colab gives you a page called a notebook. A notebook has two types of cells: text cells, where you write explanations and notes, and code cells, where you write Python code and run. Now let's talk about variables. A variable in Python is like a box with a label on it. The label is the variable name, and the content inside the box is the value. For example, imagine a box labeled age with the number 20 inside, or a box labeled name with the text Sarah inside. In Python, we write age equals 20 and name equals, quote, Sarah, quote. The equal sign in Python does not mean equal in the mathematical sense. It means put the value on the right side into the variable on the left side. There are some simple rules for naming variables. First, a variable name cannot have spaces. For example, user_name is okay, but user space name is not okay. Second, a variable name cannot start with a number. Name2 is okay, but toName is not. Third, always use names that mean something. Use descriptive names like age, first_name, or total_price. This makes your code easier to read and understand. A data type describes what kind of value is inside the variable. In this chapter, we will study 4 basic data types. First, string, which represents text. Second, integer, or int, which represents whole numbers. Third, float, which represents numbers with a decimal point. And fourth, bool, or bool, which can only be true or false. Let's go through each one step by step. Let's start with strings. A string in Python is a sequence of characters, like letters, numbers used as text, spaces, and symbols. We write strings between quotes, either double quotes or single quotes. For example, message equals quote, hello, quote. To see the content of a string, we use the print function. We can also join 2 strings together using the plus operator. This is called concatenation. For example, if first name is Sarah and last name is Gayaklu, we can write full name equals first name plus a space plus last name. The result is Sarah Gayaklu. Here are some more string examples. In example 1, we create a variable called name with the value Ali. Then we build a greeting by joining hello, comma, space, the name variable, and an exclamation mark. When we print it, we get hello, Ali. In example 2, we have first name as Sarah and city as Palermo. We print them together to get the sentence, Sarah lives in Palermo.
Next, let's look at integers. An integer, or int, is a whole number with no decimal part. Examples include 0, 5, -3, and 2026. Integers can be positive, negative, or 0. We can use integers in mathematical operations: addition with the plus sign, subtraction with the minus sign, multiplication with the asterisk, and division with the /. Notice that when we divide 5 by 2, the result is 2.5, which is actually a float, not an integer. This is important to remember.
Now let's look at floats. A float is a number that has a decimal point. Examples include 3.14, -0.5, and 2.0. Floats are used when you need more precision, like for money or measurements. We can do the same mathematical operations with floats as with integers. An important thing to know: when you mix an integer and a float in an operation, the result is always a float. For example, 5 plus 2.0 gives us 7.0, which is a float because at least one of the numbers has a decimal point.
Finally, let's learn about booleans. A boolean can only be true or false. We use booleans to represent answers to yes or no questions. For example, is the user older than 18? True or false? In Python, true and false must start with a capital letter and have no quotes around them. We often create booleans by comparing values. The greater than sign checks if one value is larger. The less than sign checks if it is smaller. Double equals checks if two values are equal. Exclamation mark equals checks if they are not equal. And we also have greater or equal and less or equal. Here is a practical example with booleans. We set age to 17. Then we check, is age greater than or equal to 18? Since 17 is not greater than or equal to 18, is adult becomes false. Next, we check if age is between 13 and 19 using the AND operator. Both conditions are true. 17 is greater than or equal to 13, and 17 is less than or equal to 19, so is teenager becomes true. Let's put everything together in one final example. Here, we use all 4 data types. Name is a string, Sarah. Age is an integer, 20. Height is a float, 1.70. And is student is a boolean, true. To build a message, we join strings together. Notice that we use the str function to convert the integer age into a string, because we can only concatenate strings with other strings. The output is, Sarah is 20 years old. Then we checked if age is greater than or equal to 18. Since age is 20, is adult becomes true. Let's quickly recap what we learned in Chapter 1. A variable is like a labeled box that stores data. We learned 4 basic data types: strings for text, integers for whole numbers, floats for decimal numbers, and booleans for true or false values. We used the print function to display values on screen and the str function to convert numbers into text for concatenation. Great job completing Chapter 1. In the next chapter, we will learn about if conditions, elif, and else. See you there!